Welcome to the Hank Cisco Show. Ladies and gentlemen, please don't touch that dial. I have a special guest, really. Hey, this gentleman is a special guest. I mean, and I got to say that he is one of the most kindest, he's just soft and tough, you know. It's really a judge that understands, a judge that listens, and he's a friendly judge. And he's a gentleman, and he's the president judge of Montgomery County Common Pleas Courts here in Montgomery County. And now, S stands for what?
Samuel.
Samuel, okay. And then the middle name?
Gerald.
Gerald Corso.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Welcome to the Hank Cisco Show. Okay. Now, let's talk about you. Okay. Now, you're a judge. You wasn't born a judge. A lot of people say, well, you know, he stands at a distance, but you're human. So let's tell a human side of a judge. Now,
all right.
Tell me something about yourself.
All right. Well, I was born in Washington, D.C. I grew up in Northern Virginia. I went to the University of Virginia. And when I graduated from Virginia, then I came up to Pennsylvania and went to Villanova Law School. Got married 1 week before law school to a Norristown girl.
Norristown.
That's
okay.
right.
And where did she live?
She lived on Pine Street.
Pine Street. Well, yeah, it's a block away from where I live. I live on Powell.
Okay, a block away.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, my mother-in-law, who was a teacher, one of her good friends was Carrie Holton, who was Dr. Holton's mother.
Dr. Holton's mother. Oh,
That's
my God.
right.
You know, I was talking to Dr. Holton last night. I said, hey, I'm going to have Judge Corso. He says, my father and mother was their first client.
Absolutely. They were the very first ones.
No
I
kidding.
did a will for his mother, which I typed myself at home.
Oh.
It was really the first client. So that goes back a number of years.
And your wife's name is?
Her maiden name was Fox.
Fox. Was that
Right.
in relation to the lawyer Fox, the Fox family? Or?
Bill Fox. Fox Differ.
Oh, okay. He's his solicitor for Pat Mascara or so?
Yes, that is her cousin.
Or cousins, okay.
That's Billy Fox.
Okay.
Yes, the original firm was Fox Differ.
Oh, yeah,
And
okay.
then it was originally her grandfather. And then after that, it was her uncle. And then my wife's father actually was in real estate in Norristown.
Oh, okay.
So it was kind of interesting when I finished law school. I guess the first question was whether I was going to go with the family law firm, to which the answer was no, I don't think I'll go there. So one of my first jobs, I was a law clerk, initially for Judge Forrest. Do you remember him?
Oh, yeah. Judge Forrest. I bought his car, second-hand car from Judge Forrest. He says he don't drive much, but he had a hot rod nephew that you burned the motor out.
All right. Yeah, he was
Judge Forrest, right.
the president judge at the time, and so I was his law clerk.
Right.
And then
You look so young, considering, Forrest,
it's
it's a long
good,
time.
good genes.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that what you say?
That because you're Sicilian, that's why you got that Sicilian blood, right?
That's where the grandparents were from.
Right, right. Your grandparents from
They're from
Cis-
Partenico.
Nico, and that near where? What's that here?
Um,
I guess Palermo or something?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because I was there in Sicily one time. I like to go there again, that's where my parents were from. I went there to visit where they were married in the stores.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really, really something. And you come back 10 foot tall when you come back to see where your parents
matter
came
of fact,
from.
when I was over there, we were in Palermo, and I did call Partenico, and the old family business is still there.
Oh, yeah?
It's Corso Leone Funeral and Casket Company.
Oh, Madonna.
And so they're still there. And matter of fact, some of the people, or some people that have a pizza shop over in Ambler, actually had worked for them before they came to the United States. So they've been there for a number of years.
Well, you originally, your home is in around Ambler, right?
Well, I live in Bluebell now, but originally when I first came to Norristown, I was in East Norton.
Okay.
I crossed the border.
Right.
And you know, people from Norristown didn't go that far.
Right, right.
The life ended at the border.
Right, right.
So,
South of the border, down Mexico
So
way.
I was just a little ways outside of town. And as I said, I came to law school here. And then after being a law clerk, I then worked in the DA's office when Milton Moss was a
Milt
DA.
Moss, oh, great
Were
guy.
you a cop or a county detective at that time?
I was well, he's the one that told me, the Norristown Police, Hank, come over and be a juvenile officer in Montgomery County. I was the first juvenile officer in Montgomery County, DA's
Okay.
office, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the one. And
Yeah.
Judge
Stanziani, was he
Honeyman,
there then?
Judge Honeyman at that time.
Okay.
Was the president judge at the time. I think he
no,
was.
no, not Honeyman.
Not Honeyman?
It could have been
Well, he was the one that
Lau.
no, could be. Yeah, could be, yeah. But Judge Morse and then Judge Cirillo, we used to
Oh,
go to the
yeah.
fights, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever go down to fights with us?
No.
No? How about that? We used to get down to I used to referee the fights, and the whole gang used to get down. Okay, now you have your children.
I have two.
Yeah?
I have a boy and a girl. They're both grown. They both live in the Washington area.
What's their names?
Jill and Jer, Jr.
Yeah.
The S. Gerald, actually, my father was Samuel Joseph, and I'm Samuel Gerald.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So he was Sam, and I became Jerry. That's the way the names worked out. But actually, my whole family is down around Washington at this point,
at this
except for me. Both of my kids have gone down there, and my sister is down there at this
Well,
point.
what gives you the idea that you wanted to be a judge? Did you always want to be a judge, or a lawyer, or a fireman, or police officer, or, you know, what motivated that? And here you're the top spot president judge of the county police court here in Montgomery County, you know?
Well, you know, initially when I went to school, I thought I was going to be an engineer.
Oh, okay.
And so I started out in engineering school, and then I kind of decided I would get out of engineering, and then I switched over. My major was actually psychology. And I used to sit and have lunch
Is
with...
that why you just sit there and look real calm? You don't talk? Psychiatrists really...
I'm analyzing
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So basically, I used to listen at lunchtime to a bunch of guys that were in law school. And so it always sounded very interesting, sounded challenging, and, you know, people always make life interesting.
Was there someone in your life that said, hey, look, take this road, I think it's going to be... Was anybody that really lit the candle, or...
Well, as I said, I listened to those guys. I did have two uncles who were both lawyers.
Oh, okay.
And although they were with the Internal Revenue, they never practiced law.
In Washington.
In the Washington
Yeah.
area, correct. So I guess really when I graduated from college, and law school seemed like it would be a good option at that point. And so I came up, and I guess my son was born at the end of the first year. So basically at that point, that meant that you're going to go to work because you're going to need some money.
Yeah, right.
So at that time during law school, I was working at Gennardi's.
Gennardi's? Where, in Norristown here?
As in Sandy Hill.
Sandy Hill, yeah, it's not there no more.
And then I worked, at the same time, I worked at People's Bank in their charge account office
right, okay.
on Penn Street.
Right, right.
And then I worked for United Detective Agency.
What'd you do there?
I was a night watchman.
Oh,
Used
yeah.
to go over at King of Prussia at Penny's. And
You catch any shoplifters?
no, the stores closed when I was there.
Oh, okay.
I was
okay,
overnight.
okay.
I was overnight.
You know,
So-
talk about shoplifters, you know, a case there where one of the security guys, he testified that he saw this lady take something, you know, and so I remember the district justice said, did you see her put it in her pocket or anything? She says, no, I didn't see it, but she was over here, and then it was gone. He says, if you didn't see it, it didn't happen.
Didn't believe in circumstantial evidence. Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
well, yeah, but so, you know, it was, I can remember that. If you didn't see it, it didn't happen. All right, now let's talk about you as a judge.
All
You
right.
know, a lot of people don't realize the tension and the stress. I mean, I know even as a police officer, I had to go in and testify, and you know, you're going to get cross-examined, and a lot of tension. And for a judge to sit there and you have to make a decision, sometimes a decision of life and death. And how do you handle that? How do you...
Well, it sort of comes with the territory. If you want to become a judge, you got to make a decision. It's not a position for the indecisive person, because if you can't make a decision, you're going to be miserable.
Right.
Because you're going to be second guessing, you're going to not be able to hand down a decision. And basically, when people come to court, they expect a ruling to come down. They may not always agree with it,
Right.
but they expect a ruling. I remember when I first was on the bench, and it was a criminal case, and it was a serious charge, and the family was there, the wife, the small children. Of course, they were very upset and emotional.
Right.
And the defense lawyer was arguing for probation. The Commonwealth attorney was arguing for many years in the state penitentiary.
Hey.
It was, I think it was a robbery or something. It was a serious charge.
Serious charge.
And I really did feel for the first time that you really have the power almost of life and death over these people.
Right.
And it's a heavy responsibility.
Yeah.
It is heavy. I remember handing down that decision, and the person did go to the penitentiary, which is what I believed should have happened. But it really brought home to you the authority that you've got, and the fact that it's very important that you exercise it prudently.
Right. Well, you handle I haven't. I was Norristown Police for 24 years and DA's office for another 14 or so, and I've been in town, and I never heard anybody say, Judge Corso, you have a good reputation, you're well-mannered, and, in other words, you got class you haven't used yet, okay? But, okay, now, I spent most of my life as a juvenile officer and dealing with juveniles, and then you are now
I'm the
handling juveniles.
I am now the juvenile
Tell me something
judge.
about that. Now, how's that operate? What's this whole setup in
Well,
the county
basically,
system?
the way it works now is that a petition is filed, usually by the police. The first thing they do is they have an intake conference at juvenile probation.
Okay. In other words, if a juvenile is picked up for whatever, then he released to the custody of his parents or so.
Either that, or if they are detained,
Detained at
then
detention center.
at the detention center, then basically within 72 hours, you have a detention hearing.
You have to have a detention hearing.
Yes. You
in other
get
words.
very tight time frames in juvenile court.
Juvenile.
If the juvenile is arrested by the police, they appear within 72 hours at a detention hearing.
And the police have to be there to testify why.
Well, they have to give
Right.
you a prima facie case
Right, okay.
as to why they're there, and then you take into consideration other problems they've had, how they're getting along, the seriousness of the crime, the home situation, and things like that.
Whether you should release them or not.
That's right. If they are detained, then they have the trial within 10 days.
Has to be within 10.
It
In other
has
words,
to be within
pretty
10
rigid
days.
at juvenile,
It is
right?
a very quick, not delayed like you hear delays.
Yeah. Right. That's all right. Just hook it on.
You don't get that in juvenile court.
Is that all right? Go ahead.
The way it works is if the person is detained, then at the trial, if they're still detained, then they have to have disposition, which would be like sentencing in adult court, within 20 days. So the whole process is like warp speed compared to adult cases where the Commonwealth would bring you to trial within 180 days. Here, the whole thing is done in basically a little over a month.
Right.
So it's a lot goes on during that period of time.
Then, okay, so then a juvenile is either found, in juvenile...
They're adjudicated delinquent
Yeah,
or
in
not.
adult, he's found guilty, juvenile...
They're adjudicated delinquent.
There's a difference between...
There's differences.
In other words, a adult commits a crime and a juvenile commits a delinquent act.
Correct.
Is that right? So there's a difference in...
And it's an intentional difference because basically the legislature has adopted a policy that juveniles, based upon their age and other factors like that, should be given, to the extent possible, treatment, rehabilitation, and basically held accountable for their conduct. Punishment is not the focus of juvenile court. It's really to address the juvenile's problem, make them understand that this type of conduct can't continue,
Right.
hold them accountable, and basically have them make either restitution or otherwise try to make the community whole.
In other words, then, when that case is handled, you get a report from the probation, who makes a background investigation,
At the-
you get the police report, you get, in other words, everything is compiled, and then you are the one to decide on where...
What's going to happen?
What's going to happen and where he's going to go. Then I get the probation helps you out as far as what kind of institution. It could be a camp or
Well, there are a number of different types of placement facilities that are available to juvenile court. I basically make that decision. I get a recommendation from juvenile probation,
who makes the investigation.
who makes
Right.
the investigation.
Right.
And at the time of the disposition hearing, I generally will have a psychological evaluation. I may have a drug and alcohol evaluation. I may have a psychiatric evaluation. If they are detained, I will have a report from the detention center. And we also have a service which is known as Community Monitoring Service. If I release them before disposition on this, what I call CMS, I will also have a report from them.
Okay.
In addition to family background, prior police contacts, how they're doing in school, and a recommendation. So I get a whole lot of information made available to me for the disposition hearing. And what I've done is I've gone to most of the placement facilities that we utilize.
In other words, you go visit to
I
see what...
actually go and
That's
visit.
important, you know.
I want to see what
You
it
wanna
looks
see- right.
like. I want to talk with the personnel. I want to see what the staff to juvenile ratio is. I want to know what the academic component is. I want to know what the vocational training is available, what therapeutic treatment is available, and
So you know what you're sending,
I
you're
want to
sending
know.
them to, right?
I want to know what's going on. I want to know where they are going. Don't
Now, how
wanna-
about the facility here, what they used to be called Fatlin, now it's filled up with protected boys, up there on Pauling's Road there, what?
We actually do not use that too much. That's primarily utilized by Philadelphia. We primarily use, I would say we use Glen Mills a lot,
Glen Mills, yeah.
which
right.
is local. We use New Life,
Is that out?
which is up in Swanksville.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And then we have other facilities. We use George Junior Republic. We use Cornell Abraxas.
And the
We
different treatments, right?
They have different
Right,
treatments.
different treatments.
Every facility is not really appropriate for every kid,
every
in my
kid,
opinion.
right.
You know, some kids are basically streetwise, a little tougher.
right.
You get some places that's appropriate. You get some others that are much more, so we say, delicate,
Mm-hmm.
not streetwise. You get kids that have...
You don't want to get a kid that just did a minor thing and put him in with a tough guy. He'll come back here with acting tough and being tough and causing himself more trouble.
Well,
right?
obviously, placement's not our first option anyway.
Yeah.
To the extent that we can send somebody home on probation with supervision and maybe some services to help them with anger management, maybe some outpatient drug and alcohol treatment and things like that, that's always our first option. If that doesn't work, they violate, they get other charges again,
Yeah.
then obviously we consider upping the ante with regard to what's going to happen.
I was one of the first juvenile men in Norristown. We accepted $3,000 from the state to set up a juvenile division. And a lot of towns didn't want to do it, you know. So we set it up. They had to do juvenile work. And but they have, when I first started as juvenile man, we could petition a juvenile for truancy.
Actually, we do that.
Yeah, but it has to be so many days of truancy to accumulate so many days of absence. Is that, do they still do that?
Yes.
Because then all of a sudden they said, no, you can't do that. he can be bad in school, he can hooky school, but you can't send him to court. They had to do something to be an adult crime, Well, I don't know. What are you going to wait for the guy to get real bad before you get his attention? So what's the scoop on that? In other words, you can petition him, incorrigible and delinquent. Is there a difference there?
Well, you have school ungovernability, which is a one, I guess, offense, which if you are basically either admit or enter an admission or have a hearing with regard to school ungovernability, you are adjudicated dependent. You're not adjudicated delinquent. And then with regard to truancy...
Wait, you're dependent. That means that you have the problem at home?
Dependent basically means that you are a child who is in need of treatment, you're in need of
guidance.
Supervision, guidance. Basically, with dependent, you think of abused and neglected children. Mm-hmm. And you get into more of the social services type of thing. Truancy for a long time was not pursued, and a lot of places even today do not pursue it. I think a number of years ago, Judge Tressler, when he was up at juvenile court, decided that we are going to deal with truancy.
Right.
And since that time we have. And the thing about truancy is it almost is like the tip of an iceberg, because so many of those kids have so many other problems, either emotional, drug, all kinds of problems. I usually ask them, I said, why don't you go to school? Some I can't get up in the morning.
Yeah.
But that's easy. I said, I can handle that.
Yeah.
And I tell them, you either get up in the morning or I take that problem away. I keep you here and you don't have to get up because you're here. Yeah. And so we do it that way. But basically, all kinds of problems usually are under the surface with that. And it ranges anything from I've missed 10 days to some kids who haven't gone to school the whole year. And then you wonder what's going on with the parents.
And then he's losing out. And he's out in the streets when everybody's working and the house are empty where they can rob him.
Oh, there's no question.
It,
having that time gives you an opportunity to get into a whole lot of trouble, which is clearly not a good thing.
Okay, now, let's say the kid gets in, you send him to some institution or whatever, and you get a report. Do you get a report how he's
Yeah, what we do is we really plan on the day the kid's going to get out, the day the kid goes in. We plan for his re-entry into the community, going back home, what services, getting him back in school and all that things. We have a review every 5 months. In other words, sometimes I order earlier reviews, but no later than 5 months in any placement. We get a complete report, and the child has a right to a hearing with regard to what they have to say, what the counselors at the facility have to say, how he's doing, is he following the rules, is he doing well in school, is he acting out, what's going on, and you get a report on those things, and that helps you make the decision whether or not he's ready to, I say he, it could be he, it could be a she, are ready to come home or not.
All this care you're taking for a kid, yet sometimes a juvenile don't have that much care for his own welfare, okay? But you know what I found more effective when the police department was a runaway, and he was brought back into the station after being away 4 or 5 days, whatever it was. So I'd have him in the room, and I'd say, all right, well, why did you run away? I don't like my mother, I don't like my father. You don't like your father and your mother? Well, I wouldn't say, what? I'd say, you don't like your mother? I'd just go along with it, and I say, okay, you don't like your father and your mother? You don't want to go back home? Okay, you want to go? Okay, Montgomery Hall, no problem. But you won't have the liberty to pick up the phone and talk to your friends. You won't have the liberty to go open the refrigerator door to get some food when you want. You'll eat when they tell you. You'll sleep when they tell you, And so I say, now, all right, now you don't like your mother. Look, I got a petition over here. I said, you want to sign this over here, and you won't have to see your mother and father anymore. Okay, we'll give you somebody else. So you want to sign it? No, I don't want to sign it. Okay, get back home. But sometimes you have to bob and weave a little bit, And,
absolutely.
No, I don't hurt nobody. I ain't violate no law. But I was a kid too. I know what the story is.
Well, you know, sometimes you don't know what you have until you don't have it.
You got that right, right. And when you tell you won't be able to drive a car, how about this here taking the license away too? You have the power now, right? As a juvenile, they said if he has a what do they call that, the restricted license.
Well, the
teenager?
PennDOT basically does most of that. I don't usually make a specific condition, although
But you
sometimes we do.
I think they can send a parent can write a letter, I think, to PennDOT and say, my kid give me a hard time, and they can suspend it. What do they call that? The driver's license when you were about 16 or something like that. But I don't know.
I don't know all the details of that.
But it's a license, telephone, and a refrigerator. 3 things. You take that away, and I'm telling you, they're going to listen. I get their attention.
Well, you do. That's really the reason that kids are detained for the most part. And frequently what I say to them is, I want you to think about where you are, how you got in here, and what you might want to change when you get out of here to stay out of here.
Right.
And frequently that makes a big impression.
Yeah, all right. Well, okay, I think we covered that pretty good, okay? And that's for these juveniles. I hope they're listening. I'm sure they will, you know. This show is aired 3 times, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 5 to 5:30, and on Saturday too. So I want the parents to sit in on this. So, Judge, let me tell you, this has been a great half hour, and get to know you. And
It's been my pleasure.
a lot of people, there's Judge Corso, now there's the man behind the robe. Is that a term used?
Well, that's sometimes.
Right. And it's been a pleasure here. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for allowing us to come in to your home and discuss, you know, what some of the problems are and how a judge operates and how our courts operate. And I can be proud of Montgomery County. I think Montgomery County has best police departments, best courts in the country. And I had an opportunity to travel. I know many times we travel to different conferences, and we learn, we bring back. And so we've been friends, and I find out today that we're both Sicilians. Okay.
You always learn something.
That, alla salute, over here.
Cheers.
All
righty.
Alla salute. Righty.